Hello, welcome to the Motivational Stories podcast. I am your host, Ricky Lahiri, and today's story is called Nelson Mandela and the Makgonatha, a pebble in the quarry, Robben Island. The year is 1977. A desolate wind whips across the flat, rocky expanse, carrying the salty tang of the ocean and the ever-present dust. Nelson Mandela, his weathered face etched with the weight of 14 years in prison, stands at the edge of the limestone quarry. Sweat beads on his brow despite the chill, a testament to the relentless labor that defines his days. Mandela, along with other political prisoners, is tasked with breaking rocks with sledgehammers. It's a back-breaking, soul-crushing routine, designed not just to extract materials but to break the men's spirits. Yet, as Mandela hefts his hammer, a glint of defiance dances in his eyes. This is not just work, it's a battleground, a test of his resilience. He glances towards his fellow prisoners, men of different ages and backgrounds, united by their fight against apartheid. There's Makgonatha, the ever-optimistic intellectual, and Walter Sisulu, his steadfast comrade whose spirit remains unbroken. Each blow of the hammer is a shared act of resistance, a silent vow that their fight for freedom will continue. Suddenly, a new prisoner arrives. A young man, barely out of his teens, named Zwelibanzi Halubi. Fear and confusion cloud his eyes. Mandela recognizes the look. It's the same one he wore when he first arrived on this desolate island. During a brief respite, Mandela approaches Zwelibanzi. The younger man shrinks back, wary of this legendary figure. Mandela smiles, his voice a warm rumble. "Don't worry, young one. We all felt this way at first. But remember, they may take our freedom, but they cannot take our spirit." Mandela gestures towards the endless rows of prisoners toiling under the harsh sun. "We are here together. We look after each other. We share stories, jokes, anything to keep hope alive." Zwelibanzi listens intently, a flicker of defiance replacing the fear in his eyes. Over the next few weeks, Mandela takes Zwelibanzi under his wing. He teaches him the unwritten code of the prison, the subtle gestures of solidarity, the way to tap out messages on the walls in Morse code. One day, during a particularly grueling shift in the quarry, Zwelibanzi stumbles. His hammer clatters to the ground, and he falls to his knees, gasping for breath. A prison guard, a man known for his cruelty, stalks over. "Another weakling, Mandela," he sneers, his eyes glinting with malice. Before Mandela can respond, Zwelibanzi stands up, his voice shaky but firm. "I may be weak now, but my spirit will never break." The guard raises his fist, a cruel smile twisting his lips. But before it can land, another figure steps forward. It's Johannes, a giant of a man with a quiet strength. He slams his hammer down with a deafening clang, the vibrations echoing across the quarry. "Leave him alone," Johannes growls, his voice deep and menacing. The guard hesitates, surprised by the sudden defiance. He throws a hateful glare at Zwelibanzi and Johannes before stalking away. Later, huddled together in the cramped cell, Zwelibanzi looks at Mandela with newfound respect. "Thank you," he whispers. Mandela shakes his head. "No thanks needed, my friend. We are all in this together. Remember, even the smallest pebble can create ripples in a still pond." These words become a mantra for Zwelibanzi. He starts noticing the small acts of resistance among the prisoners. A shared smile, a song hummed under their breath, a story whispered in the dead of night. Each act, however seemingly insignificant, becomes a pebble creating ever-widening ripples of defiance. One day, a rumor spreads like wildfire. A smuggled radio has been found. In the dead of night, Mandela gathers the prisoners in a hidden corner of the prison yard. The radio crackles to life, and a voice from the outside world fills the air. It's a news report about growing international pressure on the South African government. A collective gasp rises from the men. For the first time in years, they hear a glimmer of hope, a confirmation that the fight against apartheid is not forgotten. Tears well up in Mandela's eyes, not from sadness, but from the overwhelming surge of hope. In the following weeks, the smuggled radio becomes their lifeline. They listen to stories of international protests, of growing dissent within South Africa itself. It fuels their determination, reminding them that their sacrifice is not in vain. Years pass, each day a monotonous grind of labor and hardship. Yet, the spirit of resistance burns bright within Robben Island. The prisoners hold clandestine lectures, debate philosophy and history, creating a microcosm of the free South Africa they dream of building. Mandela, ever the leader, becomes a teacher, a confidant, and a symbol of unwavering hope. One scorching afternoon, a new regulation is announced. Educational materials, even rudimentary textbooks found amongst the prisoners, are confiscated. Despair hangs heavy in the air. This feels like a deliberate attempt to extinguish the spark of knowledge they've so painstakingly nurtured. Mandela gathers the men in their cell. The air is thick with frustration and anger. "They can take our books," he says, his voice firm, "but they cannot take what's in our heads. We will remember, we will learn from each other. We will become living libraries," and so they do. Mandela starts an oral history project. Each prisoner recounts their life stories, their experiences of the struggle against apartheid. The stories are passed down, memorized, and retold, becoming a living archive of their fight. One evening, as Zwelibanzi shares his story of growing up in a township ravaged by poverty and violence, Johannes speaks up. "That reminds me of a similar story," he begins, launching into a tale passed down from his grandfather, a story of resistance against colonialism generations ago. The cell becomes a stage, a repository of collective memory. Stories become weapons, each one a testament to their resilience, their shared history, and their unwavering belief in a just future. News of the living library spreads through the prison grapevine. Soon, guards tasked with monitoring the prisoners begin lingering a little longer, feigning disinterest as snippets of history and philosophy filter through the air. Even the warden, a man known for his iron fist, seems to soften slightly, a flicker of something akin to respect momentarily crossing his face. One day, a new prisoner arrives. This time, it's a young white Afrikaner man, a former soldier named Peter. He's filled with shame and confusion, disillusioned by the brutality he witnessed firsthand during his service. The other prisoners look at him with suspicion. Can they trust him? Mandela, ever the pragmatist, sees an opportunity. He approaches Peter, his eyes radiating warmth and understanding. "We all have a role to play in building a better South Africa," Mandela says, his voice gentle yet firm. "Tell us your story, Peter. Let's see where our paths converge." Peter hesitates for a moment, then begins to speak. He recounts his experiences, the disillusionment he felt witnessing the violence inflicted upon innocent people. As he speaks, a connection forms between him and the other prisoners. They recognize a kindred spirit, a man yearning for a future free from racial division. Peter becomes a bridge, a symbol of the possibility of reconciliation. He joins the living library, sharing his perspective and learning from the stories of the men he once considered enemies. Years turn into decades. The world outside continues to witness the growing struggle against apartheid. International sanctions cripple the South African economy, and protests erupt within the country itself. Inside Robben Island, a sense of anticipation hangs heavy in the air. Rumors of potential negotiations, of a possible release for Mandela, spread like wildfire. Hope, long dormant, begins to stir once more. One crisp morning in 1990, the news arrives. Nelson Mandela is to be released. A wave of emotions washes over the prisoners: joy, disbelief, and a tinge of sadness at the thought of losing their leader. Mandela, his face etched with the lines of 27 years in prison, bids farewell to his comrades. He embraces them each, his eyes filled with gratitude and a promise. "The fight continues," he whispers, "but now, it will be waged on a different battlefield." As Mandela walks out of the prison gates, a free man once more, he carries with him not just his own story, but the collective stories of the men he left behind. The living library of Robben Island becomes a testament to the power of human spirit, a symbol of the unwavering fight for freedom that resonated far beyond the walls of that desolate prison. Mandela's journey to freedom was paved not by solitary acts of heroism, but by the collective strength of countless individuals. Each pebble of resistance, each shared story, each act of defiance, combined to create a tidal wave of change that ultimately brought down a system of oppression. The story of Robben Island is not just about Nelson Mandela, but about the power of collective action, the unwavering belief in a just future, and the enduring spirit of hope that can even flourish in the most desperate of circumstances. Thank you for listening. If you like the stories I tell, please follow the podcast and subscribe to it to get the latest notifications about the release of episodes. You can also follow me on X, previously known as Twitter, to get the latest notifications regarding episodes. I have provided a link to my X profile in the description section of the episode and the podcast.